He was shy, an introverted kid with thick glasses, awkward manners, and a strange sense of style. Elton John wasn't destined for greatness, or they thought so. But then, something extraordinary happened. That quiet boy from a small town in England transformed himself into one of the greatest artists of the 70s, one of the most flamboyant, fearless, and iconic performers the world has ever known. And to understand the whole story, we must go back to where it all started. Original name Reginald Kenneth Dwight was born on March 25, 1947 in Pinner, a quiet small town in Middlesex, England. From the outside, his childhood looked fairly typical. But inside the Dwight household, things were far from normal. His father, a strict and emotionally military man, disapproved of nearly everything that young Reginald loved, especially music. His mother, on the other hand, was spirited and unpredictable, creating a home filled with both support and chaos. But then, there was the piano. It became his escape. At just 3 years old, Reginald stunned his family by playing The Skater's Waltz by ear, a sign of the prodigious talent to come. Music consumed him. It became his world. By the age of 11, he earned a scholarship to the Royal Academy of Music, where he impressed his teachers with his ability to play complex pieces after hearing them just once. However, despite his talent, Reginald struggled to fit in. He was shy, quiet, and a bit of an outsider, often retreating into his imagination. While others saw a weird kid who seemed out of place, he dreamed of something bigger. By the early 60s, Reginald wanted to break out of his small-town life. He formed a band called Bluesology, a blues-inspired group that played small gigs and backed visiting American soul and R&B artists like Major Lance and Patti LaBelle. It was his first taste of the professional music world, but something was missing. Reginald wasn't the star. He was just a talented pianist in the background. But then he took his first step toward change. Inspired by the names of two bandmates, Elton Dean and John Baldry, he renamed himself to Elton John, a name that felt more ready for the spotlight. It was a sign of the transformation to come. Still, breaking through wasn't easy. Elton's early career was marked by rejection, including a failed audition for the band King Crimson. He knew he had the talent, but struggled to find his own sound. It wasn't until 1967, when a music industry ad he reacted on brought him together with an unknown lyricist named Bernie Taupin, that everything changed. Elton had finally found the missing piece, a creative partner whose words could match his melodies. And this partnership would lead him to his first major breakthrough. When Elton and Bernie first met, it was clear they were an unlikely duo. Elton was quiet and reserved, while Bernie had a poetic way of expressing himself but no musical skills. Yet this strange combination clicked immediately. Bernie's heartfelt and sometimes playful lyrics gave Elton the perfect words to turn into music, and together they made something special. Their partnership was unique. Bernie would write pages of lyrics and hand them to Elton, who would sit at the piano and compose songs in a matter of hours. They complemented each other perfectly. Bernie's words gave depth, while Elton's music made them unforgettable. This collaboration became the foundation of Elton John's success. Their first songs gained attention, but it wasn't until one particular track, Your Song, that the world truly took notice. The Elton John from the oh-so-quiet town was about to explode. Written in just a few minutes one morning, the track was simple, raw, and deeply emotional. It felt honest, like a love letter straight from the heart. When Elton sat down at the piano and gave life to Bernie's lyrics, they knew they had something special, but they didn't know just how special. Your Song became a global sensation almost overnight. It climbed the charts in both the UK and the US, marking Elton John as more than just a promising talent. He was a star. Critics praised the song's tenderness, and audiences connected with its sincerity. It wasn't flashy, but that was the beauty of it. This was the moment that solidified Elton's path to greatness. It wasn't just the song itself, it was the way Elton performed it. His voice carried an emotional weight that made every lyric feel personal, and his piano playing added a layer of depth that drew listeners in. With Your Song, Elton John went from an up-and-coming artist to a name everyone in the music world would remember. And this was only the beginning. After the success of Your Song, Elton John's career skyrocketed, and the 70s became his decade to dominate. Over the course of the decade, he released 12 studio albums, many of which are now considered classics. Albums like Honky Chateau, featuring Rocket Man, Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy. But it wasn't just his music that the world loved. It was Elton himself. On stage, he was larger than life. With his outrageous outfits, sparkling sunglasses, and infectious energy, Elton transformed his concerts into spectacles. Each performance was more than just music. It was an experience. He made audiences feel like they were a part of something unforgettable. But then, as his fame grew, so did the pressure. Behind the fame and smiles, Elton was struggling to keep up with the demands of superstardom. He turned to drugs and alcohol to cope, which became a dangerous cycle. While his music remained at the top of the charts, the man behind it all was starting to crumble under the weight of his own success. Even so, Elton continued to produce hit after hit. Songs like Benny and the Jets, Tiny Dancer, and Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me became anthems of a generation. His ability to connect with people through his music was unmatched. The 1970s also saw Elton becoming one of the first openly bisexual stars of his era, paving the way for future artists. His honesty about his identity, though not without controversy, made him an icon in the music industry. Despite the personal battles he was facing, Elton John was unstoppable during the 70s. By the end of the decade, he wasn't just a musician. He was a global icon. His journey from a shy, awkward boy to the greatest artist of the 70s was now almost complete, though the cost of that transformation was starting to take its toll. His lifestyle began to spiral out of control. But then there was the loneliness. Elton struggled deeply with his identity and self-acceptance. Though he had come out as bisexual in 1976, society at the time wasn't as accepting, and Elton felt trapped between public expectations and his own truth. The man who dazzled millions on stage often found himself isolated and unhappy when the spotlight was not there. However, Elton wasn't one to stay down for long. Despite his struggles, he never stopped creating music. It became both his outlet and his salvation. And even at his lowest, he poured his emotions into his songs, creating some of the most iconic and heartfelt music of his career. But the personal toll was undeniable. By the 80s, Elton was battling severe addictions to drugs, alcohol, and food. His health and happiness were rapidly going downhill. He described himself as being on a collision course with self-destruction. It wasn't until he hit rock bottom that he realized he needed to make a change. In 1990, Elton made one of the most courageous decisions of his life. He sought help. He checked into rehab and began a long, grueling journey towards sobriety and self-discovery. It wasn't an easy road. Recovery forced him to confront the pain and insecurities he had buried for so long. But Elton's resilience proved to be unbreakable. With time, he emerged stronger, healthier, and more determined than ever to live authentically and make a difference. This chapter of Elton's life wasn't just about survival, it was about transformation. And it showed the world that even the brightest stars can stumble, but they can also rise again, shining brighter than ever. Elton John may have said goodbye to touring with his farewell Yellow Brick Road tour, but he's far from stepping out of the spotlight. After more than 5 decades of performing, Elton announced his retirement from live touring to spend more time with his family, including his husband David Furnish and their 2 sons, Zachary and Elijah. Yet, retirement doesn't mean slowing down. Elton remains deeply involved in music. He continues to collaborate with artists across generations, proving his music is timeless. His 2021 duet with Dua Lipa, Cold Heart, became a global hit, blending his classics with a modern twist. It's a testament to how Elton's music bridges the gap between old and new, appealing to fans of all ages. Beyond music, Elton has a foundation, and he now prioritizes family, peace, and enjoying the legacy he's built. Whether it's through his music, activism, or storytelling, Elton John continues to prove that his influence is as enduring as his melodies.